They're going to start very simply, right? What is product design? And basically, the definition of product design describes the process of imagining, creating, and iterating products that solve the user's problems or addresses specific needs in a given market. So, as I was mentioning before, when we were waiting to get onto Facebook Live, product design is really centered around the customer. So we're going to think about it always through that lens, that aspect. Okay, I just wanted to get another show of hands. Who has already designed products? All right, do we want to talk a little bit about where we are in that process? Okay, I know you've designed a bunch.
I have Etsy store, for products on. So I uploaded a few things. I haven't got any sales yet.
Yeah, okay.
And I also do gift baskets, custom gift baskets.
Okay.
So I have the gift baskets are done. The Etsy shop is up, but I'm still working.
Okay, does anybody else want to talk about where they are in their process as of yet? Or online?
Very early.
The idea stage, right? Okay.
I have a question.
Yep, go right ahead.
So I kind of have two products in mind. So at least that I want to work on. One is more in the idea stage, which I think is when you first asked us if we're trying to design something that's already created, that's kind of one of them. But then also I make something.
Okay.
So I don't know, yeah, so that's just where I'm at. So I don't know if that came up as a question, but I'm just kind of, that's where I'm at. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. So there's basically a lot of there's actually product design courses that are like full, semester courses that talk about product design. But where we are now, there's really just 5 elements of product design, right? And then and I consider a 6th as well, right? So the very first, again, if we're talking about being customer centric, the very first aspect or the very first element is empathizing, right? Being able to empathize with the end user, with the customer. So what does that mean? You realize that there is a gap, even if there's a product that would be considered your competitor's product already out there, right? There's empathy for the fact that there might be something missing in that product. So we're going to talk a little bit about that both in design and in pricing. And I'll talk about the different elements or aspects of pricing. Okay, so once you have that idea where you're empathizing with what the issue, the problem that you're trying to solve, right? We're always talking about when you start a business, part of the reason why you're starting a business, besides making money and having freedom or whatever it is for yourself, right? It's you're trying to solve a problem. Then the next thing to do is to define what that product or that series of products are, right? So when you start with one product, you're really defining what is that thing. You're shaping it. You're giving it, breathing life into it. What is making it unique? What is that thing? The thing that I'm really going to talk more about is the prototype. And different products have different ideas, different aspects of what a prototype is, right? So if you're talking about a candle, maybe you're making candles, right? If you make a prototype, you're starting to make the mixture. What are the ingredients that go into it? Is it going to have a scent? Is it going to be natural? Is it going to have beeswax? Is it going to have paraffin? What are the things that go into that? If you're designing clothes, your prototype, right, is going to be a pattern. And then the pattern is going to go on a form. A 3D rendering You know, if you're building, the next best toothbrush, what's that prototype going to look like? And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then there's the testing phase, right? So testing it out yourself, and then getting, if you're able to try it out on your friends or family, or kind of going out into the world and saying, hey, with software or something like that, you're always hearing about beta testers, right? Or alpha testers or beta testers, people that are going to go through the process of utilizing that product so they can give you feedback as to how that product is working for them. So if we're in a spot right now, right, some of us have said we've already created products, or we're in the design phase, or that sort of thing. That piece is also very important as well. Getting feedback, getting out of your own head is part of that design process. So whatever that testing looks like for you, and then refining, right? There's always going to be, that aha moment, or when you're getting feedback, where you're going to refine that product. You're going to change it in such a way that eventually it's going to get better. Does anybody have any questions? I know we're in the early stages right now. First.
What the third one is?
Yeah, that's actually supposed to be ideate, and for some reason it came, yeah. So empathize, you're coming up with, you're understanding that there's an issue, that there's a problem, that there's something that has to be solved. Define what that is. Conceived means is ideation, conceiving of, like, what is that product you're starting to create in your mind, what that's going to be. And you might just, when we get to the prototype stage, there's different ways to prototype something. Then the prototype and the actual creation of one thing that you're just working on. Testing it and then refining it. All right. I'm going to very gently go to the next slide, and I apologize for, there we go. Ellen, are you able to know if there's any comments or anything like that? If anybody has any questions, if they raise their hands, or if they put something in the chat so that I can answer. So, oops. You have to mute that back up. So one of the things we had originally talked about was when we're in the stage of design, or when we're in the idea stage, right? Oftentimes there's already something out there. So one of my son's very favorite thing was to take apart anything electronic, right? Deconstructing something. How is this made? What are the different parts of it? Right? And you can either deconstruct something physically, like really physically taking it apart, or you can deconstruct it in your mind. Again, I'm going to go back to like a toothbrush, right? What are the different aspects of that toothbrush? What is the handle made out of? How does the handle feel in your hand? The bristles, right? What do the bristles feel like on your teeth? If you run your finger across the bristles, what is that like? Does it feel like I have a toothbrush right now? It feels like it's fitting around every single tooth and massaging that tooth. The back of the toothbrush, does it have like the little, what does it have, the tongue brusher on the back of the toothbrush? Like, so deconstructing it. Is it made of plastic? Is it made of bamboo? Is it made of, does it have kind of like that rubbery feel around the handle? So when you're gripping it, you feel comfort in your hand. All of these things that you're thinking about when you deconstruct that product. So really, really think about what your competitors' products may look like, may feel like, may smell like, sound like, whatever it is, that how it's affecting your senses. And start making notes. And it's going to give a couple minutes for, or 30 seconds, people writing notes. Or 10. I'm like, 30 seconds is a long time. Keep going, keep going.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How important is it to do that deconstruct part, especially if you have you have something somebody else may not have?
Yeah.
You know, what's the importance of doing?
So again, one of the similarities between product development and product pricing, you're going to find even in pricing, is research, 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 right? So even though this happens all the time, I do marketing, and somebody will say, well, I have something so unique, nobody else has it. And it's like, we've been on this earth how long? There's been how many different products? You know, there's always, not always, many, many times there's a version of the product that you're making. If you're making something by hand, right? There's a version of it, or there is an iteration, you know, there may be an iteration, like a car, right? From the very first car to the cars that we have now, there's been so many iterations. At one point, right, there was a point where it's like, well, nobody made an electric car yet. Nobody made a car that ran on solar panels yet. You know, so you start with the car, and somebody deconstructed that car. They thought about the process by which that car runs, and they said, I can make a better car in this manner. When they first put in leather seats, when they first put in seat belts, you know, they deconstructed that and then put it back together the way they envisioned it. So that's that very first thing, that deconstruction. And maybe not all of these elements will work for you. It's not like it's it's not a linear process. Like first you're going to deconstruct, then you're going to sketch, then you're going to have a computer aided design. You may not do a computer aided design at all. I'm going to pull this up so people can see. There we go. So the second one, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. Sketch it out. Even a simple sketch, right? A lot of people do this. You hear the term, you know, I sketched out an idea on a napkin, right? I was sitting in a restaurant and I was thinking of something and I started sketching it out. You know, I think many of us, when we think of things, we'll sketch stuff out. When you're doing clothing design, right? Are you sketching it out? No. Yeah. But that's one method, right? Is to just get a pad in front of you, or now at this point an iPad or something like that, and just, you know, ideate in that way. A lot of times people will use like graph paper if it's something that's a little bit more precise, or a graphing tool on a computer, and start figuring it out, you know, with measurement and, you know, drawing the concept of what a 3D image of it would be. Obtaining a computer-aided design of your product. Now we have 3D printing. So if you're doing something that's three-dimensional and more solid, you're thinking about what that looks like. We have in order to do that. Yeah, so right here in the library, you could, you know, decide that I'm gonna test out this idea that I have, and I'm gonna create it, the 3D image of what I'm thinking this is going to look like. And then creating a handmade version of it, right? And what that looks like. When you're doing this prototype, you're not just thinking this is the thing that's going to break the mold, right? This is it. You're looking for not only all the pros, but the cons as well. I actually had the pleasure of working right next to an office where basically that's all they were a product design company. And these big organizations would go to them and they would create newer, better versions of things, everything from those floss picks that you see. So the difference between, you know, the floss pick and it looks like it's a little, it has like one little string. And then now you have these floss picks that are like little brushes. The difference between having the string and having the brush. There was a process that happened, including doing research with actual, you know, again, people who will test it or people who will give feedback. Remember I talked about the feedback as well. So they grabbed the prototype of this, they, you know, they talked about this thing and that thing, they made the actual product, they sent it out to people and they said, okay, try out this flosser or this dental floss, the individual sticks that have the toothpick on one end and the string on the other. And then this other type that has a brush, you know, it looks like a brush bristle, and then the toothpick on the other end. And had people talk about what their experience was with that, right? So that's the other aspect that we're talking about, where it's very customer centric. Think about what that looks like. And I just want to make sure. Okay. No question? Cool. So again, there's many ways that people think about product development and product design. And I think one of the things too to think about is to start, you know, when people say start small, start fewer, right? A lot of times we get excited. I do too. I do this a lot when I do my gardening. I think that I'm going to plant every single vegetable that's in the myriad. Thank you, Simone. It's in the myriad.
There's no room to start the plants.
Right. And then all of a sudden,
Should have divided it out.
you know, I run out of room. I'm planting things that are not supposed to be next to each other. You know, things are dying on me. I have no idea why. What's this insect over here? Start losing. So starting with fewer and really thinking about what it is. Now, a lot of times, and I know there's actually some great stuff out there. And as we get further along in this cohort, we're actually going to be talking about Etsy and other online platforms where you can sell, right? And that's definitely an area where when you think about both from the aspects of products and designs, right? You don't want to throw everything up there, you know, and see what hits, that sort of thing, right? Because that's, you know, that seems to be the, just as we're, you know, when I do marketing and promotions, I want to do a plan. I want to do a campaign. I want to kind of walk in there and think about who's my audience, who do I want to reach, who's going to best be able to benefit you know, from these products. What are the features? You know, so it's really about creating the product. It's also about creating the story as you're building that, right? Why should this thing actually be brought to life? What is its unique features? How does it benefit the prospective customers? And in order to do that, right? Starting with fewer, having one line of something or one series, of something and then moving on to the next and then moving on to the next and letting it build in that manner. I'm trying really hard. Oops, that's backwards. Still backwards. Go forward. Thank you. One more. Okay. So I'm going to keep kind of going back and forth between product and pricing because again, there's a lot of interaction and play in there, especially when it comes to what you're thinking of and who you're thinking of when this happens, right? So for me, from a marketing perspective, right, there's 4 aspects. There's the product itself, there's the promotion of the product, there's a place where that sits, whether it's a retail store, brick and mortar, online, a hybrid of the two, pop up, whatever that looks like, and there's price. Price is the only component that generates revenue. It costs to promote, it costs resources, time, effort, money. Developing the product, again, time, effort, money, and the place, right? Whether you have a brick and mortar store and you have to pay a rent or a lease or that sort of thing, or you have to have something reside on a website or paying a monthly fee. You have a question.
Yeah, this place, only where it's sold or where,
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
okay.
Yep, where it's being produced, where it's being distributed. Later on, in this, and I apologize for not always looking at the screen as well. Later on, in this cohort, we're actually going to be talking about shipping and distribution and what that looks like. And I remember I was consulting with one business, and she was like, I'm ready to take all these products and start shipping it out nationwide. And I said, okay, what's your plan for doing that? Where are you gonna store it? Where are you gonna warehouse these things? What's the distribution process gonna be? What's the shipping? You know how much it costs to ship? What kind of shipping methods are you going to be using? Because there's pricing involved in that. Are you gonna cover the shipping costs? Are they gonna cover the shipping costs? Where are the elements of these products coming from? Are they coming from locally? Are they coming from China and coming over on a boat? Are they coming over from Canada and they're coming down by train or truck? What does all of this look like? Right? So when we're talking about product development, we're talking about pricing. This is where pricing comes in. So now we're not just talking about the price of the actual product, because when you're thinking of the price of the actual product, you're thinking about it in all of these different ways. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So basically, there's many pricing models, somewhere between 3 and 5. But I always think about it from the perspective of there's pricing aspects, because I don't like to utilize just one of these models all by themselves. So it's cost-based, customer-based, and competition-based. This is all information that is in the SBA.gov document that you sent it over, right? Yeah, thank you. So there's a PDF of the document for those of us who are online, and then there's the actual document. And yes, you're going to see that I pulled a lot of the text from that document because it's perfect. It perfectly describes what these aspects are. So cost-based, customer-based, and competition-based. And I'll tell you the reason why I like to take all of these into consideration. Actually, if somebody doesn't mind just passing the document down to me. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you so much. And then I can show how blind I am. Here's my glasses. So cost base means you first need to calculate, and this is something you should be doing anyways for products. So this is why I kind of smushed these two things together. The cost incurred by producing, marketing, distributing your product. And it says, and or service. And I know right now that what we're talking about is products. But if you're also, a lot of times we're a service-based business, right? And how many of us are service-based with products? So if you raise your hand for that, you got service-based, and then you have products that you're selling as well. Yeah. So when you're thinking about your cost, right, and this is something that, this is so painful to me. I don't like doing this part of business at all. I admit it. When you're thinking about producing a product from scratch, you have your raw materials, right? So usually what I do, and it has it available here, where you can actually break down your item by the raw materials that are needed for that item. Right? What are the things? Do you need plastic? Do you need fabric? Do you need, you know, essential oils? Do you, whatever it is. So when we're going back to the breakdown of what it is we do as far as the making the prototype, we're in the prototype stage. That's also when we're thinking about what are the actual materials that we're going to end up using? Where are they going to be sourced from? So the cost of the raw materials, manufacturing, the shipping of those materials, or the acquiring of those materials, right? So if you're having things shipped to you, if you have to go to the store, grab up a whole shopping cart full of whatever it is, right? That sort of thing. This is the breakdown of the cost. Interestingly enough, this is information that also is in a component of your business plan as well. So when you're breaking down your expenses and you're doing it for understanding what your costs are, it's a dual role, right? So when you're thinking about your expenses in your financials, your business plan, and when you're thinking about how you're going to price your product. In the cost-based model, they're also taking into consideration marketing. This is a model that is used. I don't like doing this on a per product or a product basis as far as like what my costs are going to be. I like to do it as an overall cost, right? If I start doing breakdowns like this, I'm just gonna cry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not alone. Not alone. And then thinking about the distribution and the shipping, right? But that's separate costs, right? And but it's something to take into consideration, because if you're paying for shipping, right? You're like, free shipping. What does that mean? Does it mean that you're going to include that in the cost of your product, or you're just going to be like, that's cool, well, I'm just going to write that one down as a loss? Yeah. Okay, customer base. Does anybody already use any of these aspects when they're thinking about their pricing? Yeah,
As I'm standing up, I started making like
mm-hmm,
estimating how much it costs me. They uh, that whole thing. And,
yeah,
like, taking the time and all that stuff.
right. And as you grow, right, you go from 1. How much does it cost to make 1? How much does it cost to make 10? How much does it cost to make 100? Right, and we're going to get to another formula at the end of this. I don't want to ruin the surprise. But these are the things, right? T, you explained it perfectly, what you're taking into consideration in cost base, pricing or cost, yeah. And the fact, right, that somebody is getting a handmade, unique product, design. All right. So when you're thinking about it, again, this is for the SBA and in this world over here, a customer-based pricing model, they don't really take everything else into consideration. So this is again where we're doing research, right? We're doing a lot of research when we're getting into this whole process of product development and pricing. And it sounds like a lot now, but once you do it once and you have a process, I'm all about process. Because if I don't have a process for something, I get very distracted. I mean, I just get very distracted. So I have to make a process and then I have to go, oh, number 1, now I do this, now I do this, now I do this. Okay, stay on task, Julia. Don't look at the squirrel out the window. So in this particular aspect, you study the market in order to understand, seeing where I am with time because I also tend to chatty chat. How much your customers can and are willing to pay, right? So this goes back to, what did I talk about when we were talking about product? I was talking about studying competitor products, right? So if you find similar products to yours that you can improve, or there's something that makes your product unique, right? Something that comes off of an assembly line, or something that there's one pattern and not, the material is always the same, the fabric is always the same, instead of something that's handmade and uniquely designed. Or I'm going back to candles because I love candles. I always look for something that has natural essential oils, as opposed to going to the store and getting something that's like, okay, I mean, I guess that's strawberry, but if you want to call it that, but I don't know why my skin's so itchy right now. So as the producer, as the one who's making the product, think about how much customers can and are willing to pay. So that's doing research in 2 areas, right? It's doing research in products that are similar to yours, right? And then you have to see where your product fits in your competitor product, right? So are you making it with materials that are similar to those that are maybe a lower price point? But you're a one-man show or a one-woman show, and it takes you more time. So then you're thinking about your audience as well. Your audience are the ones that are like, I understand that, and I want to shop mom and pop, and I want to shop a local maker, and I want to shop, right? And as you're thinking about these things, you know what else you're thinking about? Your promotion, your marketing. Every time, think about the customer. Make a note of it. Because that's what you're telling your customer. I thought about you, and I know that you'd much rather have something natural against your skin, or smell something that's from a natural essential oil, or a body lotion, or jewelry, or whatever it is. Every time you think about your customer, let them know. That sounded creepy, but it's not. It's marketing.
Like it would also might call you product.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. I get to teach about that too. I get to teach about branding. We're going to talk about that later. Yeah. Later in the month, I think. In 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Bringing somebody in to talk about branding, and we're going to tag team on that. So that's customer centric. How we doing? Anybody have questions online? We're good? Yeah. Just raise your hand. Ellen will ping me. She'll raise her hand, let me know that I have to stop for a second and answer any questions that you might have.
I have something,
Yeah, please.
part of customer base pricing is also determining market quantity and price.
Exactly.
So, if we can pull, for example, I could affordable clothing,
Mm-hmm.
cheaper. On one end, that,
Yeah,
I would sort of be on the high end,
right.
so. One, I can use, higher quality materials, and I also have, and my product isn't revenue,
Yeah.
market,
And all of that was absolutely true. And the one big thing, the one very big thing that was absolutely true, no product is for absolutely everyone. Absolutely zero product, zero is for everyone. I want to stop for a commercial break really quick. I'm going to have Ellen help me with this. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but when you are doing research, there are tools here.
Yes, there are.
In order to do research.
So we have the databases, the very important, such as business, business planning builder. We have, Merchant Select. We have all the foundation.
Can't hear, hold on.
And we also have
Batista. Okay, so I'm going to repeat what Ellen said. I'm also going, Ellen, do you mind putting it in the chat as well? So here at the New Haven Free Public Library, some of us know this, but for those of us who don't, and I just want to also give a reminder as well. There's the digital toolbox. So if you go to the New Haven Free Public Library, and I always get this, nhfel.org, and then go to find the digital toolbox. There's the Gale Business Plan Builder. So that will guide you through building a business plan if you don't have one already, or if you have one, you can kind of just check and make sure you have all the elements that you need. Especially when you build in the things that we just talked about today. And this presentation, I'm going to wrap this up and make it a PDF and send it out. And then this SBA pricing sheet, I'm going to, if you don't already have it online, we'll make sure that you have it online as well. There's Merchant Intellect as well, that provides demographic information, And then there's Statista as well. And then there's another one that I wanted to mention, which is SEM Rush. So if you are selling through a website, if you have your website, it'll grab the analytics from that. So from the perspective, okay, so Ellen did put that in there. And that's where all those resources are available. Okay, so I'm going to close up the chat so people can see this. So
Julia,
when
it's Jennifer, I'm here if you have any other questions too. I'm just at home, so I can.
oh, hey,
Hi.
you
Hi
here the
guys,
whole
I'm Jennifer.
time?
I'm the manager of the library. Some of you have met me through email. Manager of I've squared at the library. I'm not the manager of the library. That would be stupid. But many of you have met me through email. So Julia, if you have any other questions, I can chime in too.
Awesome. Perfect. So and we took a little turn. I don't know where you jumped in, but we were going through the pricing models and then remembering that a lot of the research that we're talking about here can be done through the library digital tools. And also
Yeah, I've been here since the beginning.
Like you and Ellen and me. So the last one of like the more major pricing models is competition based. So I touched upon this a little bit when I was talking about customer based, right? So customer is more directly relating to the customer, what they're willing to pay, what their needs are, what their wants are, which means that you're doing research specifically on the customers. And again, like you mentioned, T, when you realize who your customer base is, and then what are you doing to cater to them, asking yourself those questions, providing answers. So in this way, a business sets its price based on where its competitors set theirs. So like the customer-based pricing model, the competitor-based model relies again on research. So this is just like when you're doing product development and you're doing research on what your competitors, right? Because once you know that they're similar products and you start pulling those products and taking a look at them, you know, the actual products, and then you're looking at the pricing, then you're looking at who they're selling to, and then you're going, okay, where do I fit in, you know, in each of these areas. So the SBA and oftentimes many schools of thought will frame these as individual models, whereas I like to take a little bit some of the aspects of each of these models and then settle in on a price from there. If you want to take a couple of minutes, I don't know if anybody already did, to just kind of look at the tables that are provided to you for each of the models. So that's on this right here. And it's just 15 seconds for me not to talk. So when it comes to customer-based pricing model, some of the things that we're taking into consideration based on the SBA is, does it, you know, when you're testing it out on potential customers, perform satisfaction studies, research customer decision-making process, that is huge. Being able to understand a customer's decision-making process. I do this a lot of times in marketing products. There's actually in product design, there's actually a whole component of product design when you have these big companies that are doing the designing, where they test out the customer experience. right? And you hear that a lot when you're hearing about like web design and stuff like that, right? UX design, customer user experience design, there's customer experience design. How are they reacting to a product? What does that look like? How do customers make a decision to make a specific purchase? You know, whether it's a piece of clothing, I talked about like what my decision-making process is when, you know, I'm looking for something like a candle. Like, to anybody, I just like go and I'm like, oh, okay, this looks nice, it smells good, da, da, da. Let me see what the ingredients are, right? There's people in the product design organization that will literally write out every single tiny step of that product. This person went online, they went to 5 websites, they looked at all the ingredients, they started researching natural, like, you know, where does lavender essential oil come from? Oh, it comes from here. Okay, check that box, that's fine with me. Go over here. Is it paraffin? Is it beeswax? Okay, so I see that it's beeswax. Are they hurting any bees? Yes, no. Sounds silly right now, right? But it's a process because you're going into the minds of like, how are people making the decision in order to do this, right? When you get the what is it, like the food subscription? How many food subscriptions are out there? So many, right? But each one has a different customer experience. And I bet you anything, actually I know for a fact, before they packed everything into that box, they had an answer for every customer experience question. What kind of foods they eat? What do they think of the packaging? What do they think of the safety of shipping? And then 10 questions under each one of those areas, right? Customer experience is big. Being detailed in what that is huge for you. Understanding how your competitor thinks about their own customer experience, how they price that, right? Because they understand something that I haven't even talked about yet, which is value, right? We're always talking about the different prices. All right. Last part of that. Let's see, I have so many things up now that we did customer, competitor. All right, this is the sweet spot right here. Then we bring it all back to ourselves, right? Product, things that come in, customer, what are they doing? Competitor, what are they doing and thinking? But regardless of the pricing method that you choose or combination thereof, a break-even analysis is essential to determine the volume of sales you need to achieve, to recover your cost at a certain price. When it all comes down to it, are you going to recover your costs or are you going to make money? And it brings into consideration another aspect that's not in here, which is your fixed costs, which is touched upon very, very little, right? And that's when I was talking about, you know, your rent, your expenses, your phone bill, your internet bill. Those are the things that are always going to be there no matter what. So when we start a business, start selling products, right? We're at the point often where we're not making any money at all. We have to understand where it is that we start, and then where we start making more money. I'm working with another cohort right now, we talk a lot about, and I'm sure people have been in the Nomepreneur cohort, right? We're talking about KPI. Basically is all about when, at what point are you seeing money coming in? Tell me, how do you get there? So again, this right here goes into what that looks like. What's your cost per unit for a product? What's your cost for shipping if you're shipping? Because that's another thing to take into consideration too. I know I'm going to talk about this later on, weeks from now. But when you're thinking about pricing right now and what the break even is, and making the decision, are you going to sell only in store, only in a pop-up, only online? You're only going to ship a certain area. Maybe you're going to go out and deliver things. I don't know. But those all have costs too, and then making the decision as to how that affects your pricing.
Julia, are you going to talk about how to value your time in this as well? Or did I just miss that?
I think I talked a little bit about it. I use time as a resource.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we want to touch upon that even more than we did?
I just was
Yeah, so when
wondering.
we talked about, I'm going to go back. When we talked about the cost of the product, oops, that's me, sorry. That's what I look like without a mask. I just want to let you know. Don't I have a million followers? I don't know. Yeah, I guess maybe. Maybe I do. Yeah, so I think it was way back.
The reason I ask is because in a lot of the applications we were looking at, people were talking about undervaluing their time.
Yeah.
If there was some sort of model or system in place to say this is how much your time, like you should determine how much your time is worth, or if it's I am going to value my time at $15 an hour or $20 an hour or $30 an hour and just stick with it. What is reasonable and what is not?
Yeah, so that's also part of that too, is part of the formula, which I think this SBA sheet also talks about as well, where it's an it is an aspect in the formula of how you're determining your pricing. So how much time it takes you. And then the other thing too about this is when you're taking all of these things into consideration, one of the things that you're also taking into consideration when you're thinking about more specifically pricing is where you can streamline things as well, right? So then you're making decisions. How much time does it take you to do something and how do you price that time? If you're balancing your time and the cost of products, you know, again, time, cost of product, customer base, you know, I'm going to use you as an example because you and you know, right? T had said earlier, and I don't know if everybody heard, that his customer base is going to be a customer who is able to pay more money because you are factoring in design, materials, time, all those aspects, right? So when you're factoring all those aspects in, you're also factoring in who is going to be able to pay that. So that's definitely one of the things that I had also talked about as well. That also brings up, when you're thinking about pricing, is having tiers, right? So maybe having a product where you're not spending as much time, the quality is different, and you're just producing. And then as you climb,
And tiers are helpful, that actually thinking about that helps to expand my product line.
yeah,
So my hats, for example, I can make quickly, I can use scrap,
right,
sell it for a lower price.
yeah. Did everybody hear that? He had made hats, and he was able to make them more quickly, and scraps of the material, that the fabrics that he had already purchased. So something like that, he had taken into consideration his time, what he can use for material. And then it's also a product that, people still desire. And it's still unique, right? 'Cause it's material, you have fabric that other people usually don't have. So you're taking all of those aspects into consideration. So hopefully that's helpful. I don't know if it 100% addresses underpricing yourself for valuing your time. I know in the service industry that happens a lot, and products, it's very difficult to understand where that kind of sits because you're taking a whole lot of other factors.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then when you're taking your per hour, you're also taking per piece into consideration. So I think one of the things too is to definitely look at market rates, so to speak, for manufacturing of whatever the product is. All right, I think that hopefully not so abruptly concluded the presentation portion. I don't know what time we have.
You have about a half hour, Julia.
Okay. So I think a half hour might be a good time for just kind of have discussion and any kind of questions that might show up, anything. Or if you would like to start working on the pricing portion, or discuss what your process might be for your product development. I'm going to stop sharing. Oops, sorry. I'm not going to stop sharing. It's social maven at agentsofbranding.com.
Oh, they take the one out.
No, it's still there.
Is that the one right across?
It's right across on Chapel Street. Yeah. No, yeah. They brought a whole bunch of machines in too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
they're very, very big.
Oh, I think I'm confused.
No, the Grove is, yeah, that was the co-working space. That's definitely out of business, yeah. So I'll ask in 3 areas where people might have questions. Or might want to enhance what their process is. So the first one is, if you have products or designs to a product cost template. Yeah, offline, I think I have your email address. I can provide you with the information for the product cost, what a product cost template would be. There's a couple of them. Is that fine? Does that work if I give it to you within like the next 24 hours, Camilla?
Yes, yes, it works.
Okay, perfect. We can save the chat notes, right, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay,
I also have Jamila's contact information, so
excellent. Okay, just so I
I
know.
can pass it on to you.
Ah, that's a good one. How do you price when you provide a service like consulting or coaching? Yeah, that's another one where again, you're looking at what the quote unquote market value of that service would be. I know, for me, and I actually moved from doing social media planning consulting to branding consulting to actual business consulting. And every time I did that, I researched what my competitors were charging. And I was also looking online for resources that provided that type of information. I think oftentimes like LinkedIn will be able to, or Indeed, they provide information. Are there resources? Is there, I don't know. Yeah. When I Google things, I usually just like to make sure that, it's like, like an Indeed or, I go to Indeed all the time now. I don't even know if I'm like, I'm gonna age myself. I'm like, I used to go to monster.com. So, and hopefully that answers your question.
You're saying like, just like look it up on LinkedIn? Like I can just like search that question?
Yeah, oftentimes LinkedIn will provide information, especially in specific areas, what the usual consulting costs will look like. And the same thing with Indeed as well. I was trying to think of, there's a couple of other, business, Forbes is another one, a lot of the business publications will run articles specifically on what the rates are for the year, so it's like 2022, these are the going rates for consulting in X. These are this is what people are asking for. And I know, but also oftentimes taking into consideration one-on-one coaching and group coaching as well. And then understanding your market area, right? So if you're doing something in a regional market as opposed to a national market, you're going to adjust for that because you're thinking about, right, instead of underpricing yourself, understanding what the market will bear and go for that, plus a little bit percentage more. But then also understanding too, right, oftentimes we'll price based on what the market will bear, but then also based on so having a need-based pricing as well. Anything else in that area? How are we all doing with knowing what the cost for our raw materials for our products are? Even if it's designing, right? So when you're thinking about art design, what are the costs of the materials that you use to design something? I'm actually going to start dabbling into using pen and ink to do botanical illustrations because I don't have enough going on in my life at all. But when I think about that and I want to do pen and ink, but I also want to start knowing, understanding how to use my art in digital art, right? And once I get, good enough to sell something, maybe when I'm 70, what's the cost of the materials that I'm using, whatever that is.
I have a question about that. I'm sorry, I have a lot of questions, but
No, that's what the time is for.
so I'm
I
creating
want to just plug myself in. Go ahead.
I'm creating oils. So I know there are different ways to outsource some of the products I need in terms of like quality control. So like
Right.
that's what I was really hoping for, was like to like find new resources where I can have like a high quality oil so that I can create my products, and that be my edge, is that like I have a high quality product. So I don't know if like in talking about like finding our raw materials, like do you know of any platforms? Because even when it comes to the containers and stuff, like I'm ordering off of like Amazon, and that's not what I want to do. I know there are container stores, but like I don't know of them. Or like
Yeah.
where you can get like a
So,
container package.
yeah, within each industry, I personally would not know where to source from. I only know how to research who and how. And again, oftentimes, and I think I've had this conversation before, where sometimes there are people who you're like, oh gosh, like those are my competitors. Should I ask them these questions? Yeah. Ask them where they got things from. Because oftentimes, again, some are competitors and some are collaborators. And you may not have the same audience. And even if you do, that doesn't matter either. Knowing where things come from in a specific silo.
Can I,
Essential oils and is it essential sourcing I can speak. Sourcing essential oils and sourcing containers as well for the
resources,
products. Yeah, resources.
Very soon,
Yeah.
so for example, there's one of the biggest or diverse materials that I would suggest was basil and actually
Can you hear T? Yeah, trade shows. So trade shows in specific industries. And there's trade shows for everything.
basil.
There's trade shows for containers.
oh, yeah.
There are.
Go for them or that. Trade show for everything.
And also, the products that you buy, flip them over, look through it, because you'll find the manufacturers, you'll find the producer of the product.
Yeah.
I Google stuff. I go from store to store, literally from store to store.
From store to store,
I look
yeah.
at the packages, I look at everything, where it says China, like if you go to Dollar Tree, you'll find out that the Dollar Tree sources from China, and
Right.
then they put their own name on it.
On it, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not their name, it's been their company name. So I do it all. You have a U-line, which is good for containers.
That's right. I forgot all about that. Did you hear that U-line?
U-line, but
I used to get the U-line catalog.
yeah, me too. U-line is good for if you're gonna buy bulk. If you're not gonna buy bulk yet, then you can go on Amazon, you can go on Facebook. People buy big bunches, eBay, I source from. I go all over and I look at other platforms, and then people will buy bulk and they'll resell it.
Yeah,
take
that's the
one
question right
product
here,
And
yeah.
I price each person who's selling it to see what each price per piece is. I do it
And then
all.
they, yeah,
My labels, my bags, my everything. I'm constantly looking at other products, finding out who the manufacturers are, and I'll contact the manufacturers myself so that I can find what
Well,
I need.
I can't tell who's talking. So is it like a way I can get her contact information?
yeah. So one of the things that I was gonna say, and this is what we did the last time, and Jennifer, you're still on, right? What we did the last time when we did this cohort is we set up a Slack for everybody on the cohort, all the peers to
I got sent out
contact.
this afternoon.
What's that?
The Slack got sent out this afternoon.
Oh, yeah. So everybody. can-
That's why I maybe before that happens. Why this?
Mhm.
So that's important.
Oh, okay. So, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put your name.
Oh, I'm Fern. I'm not.
Fern.
I didn't make it to this part.
Oh,
But I'm here as they said I could still come and participate, as far as getting the information. So that's why.
okay. And then Gabriella, thank you for putting the Slack on there. And if you want to, yeah,
I'm about getting information.
and then what
Yeah,
I'll do
information.
too is I'll put resources in the Slack as well. So we have a list of all the questions that are here, and I'll go back and answer them more in more detailed fashion.
And when this goes up on YouTube, I'll make sure that the resources are in the description as well.
Sweet, okay. We have about 10 more minutes.
So if we were to have homework, we'll do it.
Ooh, okay. So I would say 3 things, because I think there was the 3 things that we were kind of talking about a little bit anyway. So one is to make sure that I think a lot of us we've already either sourced our products or design, or created our product or design, or we're in full production mode, like we're in full. So it'd be 3 aspects. One, make sure that you understand 3 things about your product. What the sourcing is, the features and benefits of that product, and your audience. And even if you're out of the prototype phase,
I didn't hear the last number 3. I didn't hear number 3.
audience, your target audience. And then the other aspect too, because we did product and pricing together, is to pick one of these charts, or however many of these charts you feel really help you and apply to you, and work on your chart. So this is your pricing chart. And again, the thing is, and this is just my opinion, you could say, you know what, I'm gonna go customer-centric chart all the way. That's the thing that really, helps me understand what my pricing is. But I like picking the aspects so that you really understand what the worth of that product is, including the worth of your time. What Jennifer said was really important, and I understand that that was a question with a lot of people, is they're undervaluing themselves. But part of that undervaluing means that you're not taking into consideration not just your time, but it's scary to look at all the numbers of the right? Burn, right? It's like,
is no
oh my
room
gosh,
for
this
me.
costs this,
There's no room for you in it.
And when I talk about, productivity and stuff like that, I talk about it from the perspective of, when you're valuing your time from the moment that you think about your business. When I had a job, the moment I got up and I thought about my job, that was my time. And that's when I was like, I'm gonna start my own business because these people are not valuing my time. You know? Did you have a question? Sorry. Sorry, I got off.
I guess we would go by the research looking at other products.
Yeah, that's part, right, so that's part of it, when you're looking at competitor research. Oftentimes, the higher end, they're taking into consideration the time that they're putting into, you know, the reason why, there's lots of reasons why things are less expensive. But oftentimes it's because they're not valuing workers' time, and or they have very, very streamlined process. Or they're not valuing the materials that they're saying as well, right? There's a lot of aspects to that. You know, we are in a unique position as makers ourselves that we have to take all of these things into consideration.
Well,
Because if we buy bulk, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to buy way, way bulk for, you know, like a bottle to be like 2 cents per bottle,
mhm,
way bulk,
yeah,
thousands.
yeah. I have a question with that though. When you look at the bottom line of producing the product, and you think about your time, and your value of time, I know when I've done it, I don't see any piece of that, because if I'm gonna put it out there at a price that somebody's gonna buy,
Mm-hmm,
if I was to put actually my time in there,
mm-hmm,
they wouldn't get a product. Because it's labor time.
yeah,
I don't even put really me, I think product first,
right.
and then at the end, you know, they say at the end, that's when.
Right,
you
and that's
get-
when you, yeah, and you may put that in your break even
Okay,
analysis.
okay.
Oh, I see that,
Great.
so as far as the charts are concerned, if we're talking about the pricing chart, we each have time if you wanted, like mentoring time, and I have office hours time, if you want to take office hours time and I'll sit with you. Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. What Jennifer said in the chat. I will provide one-on-one help during office hour time.
Okay.
So there's, when you do the office hour time in the Calendly, I have my Calendly, do you want to put that in the chat as well? Nope, that's not it. I don't know why, oh,
I'm here. I just
okay.
need to get to it because I'm on my phone. But yes, I will put it in the chat, long and short.
That's fine. So, and just so you know, I'm in the library, Tuesdays from 11:30 to 1:30. Thursdays from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. because I know a lot of us have daytime hours that we're keeping, whether it's job or children or whatever. And then Fridays from 2 to 4. And all of that will be in the Calendly.
Oh, you got it. Someone, Gabriella put it in. She's on the ball today.
And she's like, I found it.
I just found it.
I was like, yeah, okay, somebody's got it. So whoever wants to, and I can do this either in person, because I'll be in the library, or on Zoom.
Great.
Yeah, we won't leave you hanging on anything. Oh, yeah, that doesn't matter. Yeah. He will meet you where you are. Yeah. You heard that right. Wait, I don't get the free drink? What? And I'll also look for something that's a little bit, yeah, a little bit.
So were you gonna email us that link to your Calendly?
Oh, it's on the chat. You want me to send? I can
Oh.
send it to you too.
Jennifer put in five.
It's in here.
Yeah, it's on
It's-
your-
Oh.
Fine. It's like,
Oh, we have a Slack channel. I mentioned that already.
and how do you get there? It's like, Jennifer will give her your email.
Give her your email address. as well.
For those who are in person, I don't know if they can hear me. Anissa, can you hear me from Julia's computer? All right. So for those of you in person, if you go to the library website to I've Squared. Oh yeah, here, let me put my camera on. There, that's a thing too, right? Hi everyone, I'm in my kitchen. If you go to the library website into I've Squared and click on EIR CIR, there is a link directly to the Calendly, so you don't have to write it down. There's also links directly to the digital toolbox, which will give you a number of the resources. If you do not live in New Haven, please reach out to me, because some of the resources are only available to New Haven residents, and I have something that will help you.
I like that. I have something that will help you. Now I'm just being silly because you know it's the end of the class. Right? All right. Any last anything that anybody wants to say? You know how to reach me if you have further questions.
I have one more thing, pricing that helps. Is looking into what type of stores I want. But
Mm-hmm.
that adds to the competitive price.
Yeah, that's definitely an aspect. Yep.
Because we're seeing how much,
I'm tired.
what the price range is of.
Okay. Can you hear that? So T said also to think about and go into part of your research, right? This is part of your competitor research. Go into stores that you want to be in and look at other products that are similar to your products. What is your competitors' pricing from that perspective? Because that also informs on what people are willing to pay as well. So you have competitor and consumer research when you're doing that. And that, yeah, that's one aspect of the research that we've been talking about. Thank you for that example.
And the same thing works digitally. So if you're planning on selling 100% online, looking at other places that you want to sell that's similar, especially like on Etsy, looking for similar products, things like that. Which I'm sure Chris Tonsky will talk about in our intro to Etsy class.
I know. Yeah, it's so funny because I'm like, oh, this will inform here. And then we're gonna talk about this here. So we are gonna talk about shipping. We're gonna be talking about branding for your product. That was something I think that somebody had asked about as well. I touched a little bit upon shipping only because it does have to do with your pricing. When you're thinking about, pricing your product. So there's lots of different aspects to think about.
At some point. Yeah, it was the beginning of the pandemic, and I moved to but there are Facebook groups that are talking about similar things.
Yeah.
They
Right.
and you can order from other people, get their package shipped, and then when you open it, that experience.
Yeah, the consumer experience.
A lot. To put like their little patches and a little bottle and
Yeah.
like dollar store stuff, but it looks really nice with the little pouch, their little tags on it. And
Yeah, that makes a difference, right?
yeah, but all that was part of my
To even do those little things. Yeah. So
But it
two,
takes time to put it together, but then like, go
Yeah.
watch a movie and
Yeah.
and then, that's their time, but they're also, and then, making that experience. So people want to buy from, and
Right, right, the relationship aspect of it. So there were 3 points there. One is, another way to do research, but also have some peer camaraderie as well, is to find Facebook groups, or I would even on Instagram or Pinterest, but Facebook is probably the easiest because it has the capability to have those groups that are more out in the open. But then the unboxing experience, which we haven't even talked about, I want to talk about that more in shipping, I think. Shipping and distribution is when, again, that's another part of the research. As a marketer, I will actually go through the process of making a purchase from my client, and all the way from looking for a product, putting it in the cart, leaving it in the cart. What happens when I leave something in a cart? Am I going to get reminded that I left it in the cart? Because remember I said I look at squirrels outside? I'll do that in the middle of a purchase. And that, the store wants me back. Hey, you left something in the cart. Are you going to buy that? When I go through the purchase and shipping process, is that easy for me, or is it difficult? Am I being alerted when that box is going to come to me? It's going to arrive on my doorstep. And then when I open my purchase, what does that look like? What kind of experience is that? Okay, you answered the question about Etsy. Yeah, and I have a couple of resources about pricing for Etsy as well. And also pricing for if anybody doesn't make actual products, but makes designs, artwork or that sort of thing that gets put onto products, how to consider pricing in that manner as well. Because oftentimes, sometimes you have very limited, if you're doing Redbubble or Zazzle or something like that. But then there are parameters that you can work with. What does that look like?
All right, Julia, I'm going to hop off unless you need something else from me.
I don't need anything. I think I'm good. Are we all good? Everybody good? Is everybody all done?
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. And I will answer any more detailed questions when we're in the Slack. Or find me on the Calendly and I'll be happy to spend half hour of office hour time. Okay, thank you. Good night.